So you want to get better at portrait photography, but you don't know where to start. Well, I got you, because today I'm going to be sharing my top 5 tips with you on how to improve your portraits. So let's go ahead and get started.
So tip number 1, go to Home Depot. No, just kidding, don't do that. I'm here because I'm trying to fix my lawn for my wife. Anyways, tip number 1 is really to make your couples feel comfortable. Now, the reason I say that is because it's not all about settings, it's not all about gear. You have to ultimately make your couples comfortable. If not, it's going to show up in the photos. So you gotta have some personal skills whenever you are a photographer or videographer. Now, there's one simple way that I do this to kind of break the ice, and I just compliment my couples from the beginning. Actually, here's a clip of that. Oh, she loves you, bro. I can just tell by the look. Oh yeah, he loves you too. So at the end of the day, make your couples comfortable. It's a lot easier said than done, but once you get that down, it's gonna make your photo shoots so much better. All right, so tip number 2 is to pay attention to the small details. Now, what do I mean by the small details? Well, pay attention to that phone that goes in that pocket, those keys, that wallet, right? It's gonna show up in your photos. And trust me, it is the most annoying thing ever. Now, luckily, we do have AI now in Lightroom and in Photoshop, which makes the job a lot easier. Learn from my mistakes. Okay, it looks like I figured out my problem. So the next tip that I have for you is to make sure to capture the subject's eyes, because the eyes are going to be a glimpse into that person's soul. So you want to make sure, ideally, that you capture your subject's eyes crystal clear, super sharp. And luckily enough for us, technology has made that a lot easier now with the eye detection focus. If you don't happen to have eye detection focus in your camera, that's completely fine. Just make sure that you're nailing that focus every time on a person's eye. And also, last but not least, make sure to have a higher shutter speed, because if you have a low shutter speed, there is a good chance that you might have some shakiness in your hands. I know that I'm a very shaky photographer, so if you have a higher shutter speed, you have a much higher chance of getting a sharper photo, as opposed to if you're shooting with a low shutter speed, there's a good chance you're gonna have a blurry image. Okay, so next tip is about posing. Now, posing is something that could be very, very difficult, but here's the secret to it. You don't need to know a lot of poses. You just need to know a select few. And one thing that I always do with my couples or my subject is I put them in one pose, and then I just tell them, hey, stay in that pose. And I grab different angles, and then eventually it leads to them doing something that's a little bit even more natural for themselves. So you don't have to know every pose in the book, but there's a few key things that you do need to know is, hey, do something with your hands. You don't need to have your hands just kind of to your side. It's a little awkward, right? So have one hand in your pocket, maybe with like a thumb out, the other one maybe interacting with a piece of your clothing. You always got to keep the hands busy. You also want to go ahead and create shapes as well, like specifically a triangle. And I'd say probably the last thing when it comes to even posing is just keep in mind your rule of thirds. So the way that it works is basically you have this grid on your camera. Highly suggest to use it. And all of these grids have a point of interest. Put your subject in those points of interest. Anyways, I think my client might almost be ready. We're running out of lights, so let's get to it.
All right, it's been a day, but the last and final tip is to simplify your background. Now, what do I mean by simplify your background? Well, it's really easy. Basically, whenever you're capturing portraits, we can easily make the mistake of getting a background that is too cluttered. Or to give you a really good example is sometimes we take a picture of our subject and there is a light pole or maybe a tree behind them and it looks like it's kind of growing out of their head. And ultimately it just doesn't look professional. So the way that you fix that is by getting closer to your subject, getting a more telephoto shot, and also using a fast aperture like f2.8 or lower to make the background more blurry. So compare basically this photo to this. Which one looks better to you? I think the answer on that is pretty easy. And as a last little bonus tip, remember, you can watch as many videos as possible, but it's never going to ultimately make you a better photographer until you actually get out there and just do it. So get out there and do it.